DIY means, getting your hands dirty and making it happen yourself.
Home-based whips.
So I think like building, but
well, no,
plumbing around the house.
Like people coming together to do stuff they're passionate about.
Decide it yourself, not do it yourself.
For me, it's all about putting every aspect of the gig on yourself, from promotion and being there on the day, looking after the bands, and putting on the event in more of a community-minded style.
It's always been part of music. It's always been part of sort of punk, and that's not going to change.
You go to like various places, and it's like, oh, you've met these people before, and they come to your show, and then you always do the same for them, and all that sort of stuff. So it's like a nice family.
Either way, the whole thing about closing music venues down is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's happening all over, like in London and stuff as well, and it's just like, it's just ridiculous because obviously there's so many venues that have been closed down. Like the Astoria in London, that got closed down.
Yeah.
And so many big bands that are like staple marks of music now started off there. That was their roots, and that's they progressed up. And if that element is not within sort of the British scene anymore, then what's going to be there to replace it?
Well, the Unicorn is owned by a brewery, so we're able to offer, we can do the venue for free hire, and we provide the sound engineer as well. And so all of our gigs are free entry, and we just give bands a taking of the bar. Again, is actively involved and has always been involved in music in some capacity for the past, 20 or so years. It's, having this opportunity to provide this space, free of charge and stuff, is pretty incredible. And for me, it is about like supporting local music and smaller bands that might not get, an opportunity otherwise.
We basically work to fund this band. That's what it comes down to.
That's what I go to work for.
I guess a big pro out of like being able to do it yourself is that you can play with your mates. Whereas like I know when like agents get involved, like they can turn around and be like, well, it's not worth your time playing with so and so you can't play with them anymore. I feel like that kind of sucks. Like especially like the main reason you do this is like have fun and hang out with your friends.
I think there's a whole culture in local bands that people don't appreciate a lot of the time. Like you don't really get it until you start going to like more and more, and you start turning up to these local shows, and you start to recognise people, and you start to get on with new people.
The idea is that a music fan is also someone who buys records, is also someone who goes to gigs. We're in this position where we can reach a lot of people. If a lot of people want to come and see Bring Me the Horizon, then let's sell albums and let's sell tickets to the show at the same time. It's not just about obviously those big bands like Bring Me the Horizon. And one of the things we try and sort of get across is that the smaller shows are as important. Obviously they're not as important to the bank manager, but they're as important to us as like music fans. And some of the best gigs we do might be to sort of 5 or 10 people in an empty in-store, or like a smaller gig at the Fighting Cocks. But that doesn't mean they're any less valid. They're just not as headline news.
I think there's not always an outlet in this world for the things that we really want to do but aren't part of our kind of job work roles, and work takes up so much of our life, and it shouldn't. We should work to live and not live to work, and that's always been my kind of ethic, I suppose, if you want to call it that, or the way I kind of try, my mantra for life. So that's why I do DIY things. As long as there are people out there who are prepared to do stuff, you'll always have a DIY scene. It may grow and it may shrink, and it may change its form. There's a book out there that I did from a DIY scene of house shows that happened over 2 years ago now, for like 2 solid years, and it was punk shows like every other weekend in house. People from all over the world came and played. It was amazing.
It's cool because like when you've got venues and stuff, and you've got to go through all the things of like renting it out, and you've got to get curfews and whatever, whereas with house shows you can just do it, and it's...
I feel like there's more of a sense of community at house shows.
It's been going for like yonks. I remember like back in the day watching videos of like Lower the Atlantis around that world record Fuck You era, and they used to do like house party like tours and stuff. Like
even before that, like sort of earlier punk and stuff, it was always based around that sort of ethos.
Yeah. I think it's like a big part of like DIY culture and stuff.
It started with me like gluing CD sleeves together in my room and stuff, which is what probably an idea of a DIY label is. Recently, the latest vinyl release, everything was sourced separate, and I put it all together myself. So the whole run of records were all put together myself. When I did the first vinyl that I'd ever pressed, the wait was 6 weeks for test pressings, and then as soon as you okayed them, it was 6 weeks for the full thing. And I got a quote 2 weeks ago, and they said it'd be 24 weeks all in all. So it's the kind of uprising of vinyl has done that, especially with like Record Store Day and things like that, bulking up like all majors ordering labels and things like that. There's no money. There's no money. There's never any money. There's no money ever. So it's a good job that I don't do it for the money.
Isn't putting out a pre-order and saying this funds the album, isn't that crowdfunding? Like, that's what we did in the past, and that's sort of what convinced us to do it. I think we did a 7-inch before, and that was funded completely by the pre-order, so we knew it would work. So, but like when bands are like, oh, I need a new amp, so let's put crowdfunding out. Some people take the piss of it and like go, oh, give us 300 quid and you can come for a Nando's with us, and that's just not what we're about at all. I'm so grateful to like the people that actually listen to our band and buy our shit, because that's why we knew it'd be cool to do, and we just tried our hardest not to make it look like we're like Guns N' Roses asking for a new condo or whatever.
We've worked really hard to put a lot of money and a lot of thought, a lot of time into it.
And you will get the pre-orders.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does feel difficult to like balance the standard work life of a like capitalist society and what seems really alternative in DIY culture, but I think it's more sustainable than monetary systems because people do it because they're passionate about it, not for any other reason. DIY Southampton makes you realise that there are loads of other people who are really interested and help you out, and everyone helps each other out, that the ethos is similar, like community vibe, again something that's, it seems like a almost political or alternative to what you're used to being told that this is how you're supposed to live.
Well, DIY is always sustainable because it's about just doing things for yourself with other people.
I think it's more important than it ever has been.
I think DIY and the nature of it is a lifestyle choice.
I saw Bring Me the Horizon last night at Alexandra Palace and it was sold out. And like 10 years ago, if you asked me if metalcore was sustainable, obviously they've evolved, but I wouldn't have thought any of those bands would still be around, let alone selling out Alexandra Palace. So I think if it's done properly, then definitely.
There's so many ways to get stuff out. You kind of have no other choice, really.
DIY will never die. It's impossible.